Thousands of people have rallied in the Malaysian capital of Kuala Lumpur to demand the resignation of Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim as public discontent grows over rising living costs and allegations of failing to deliver promised reforms.
말레이시아 수도 쿠알라룸푸르에서 수천 명이 모여 안와르 이브라힘 총리의 퇴진을 요구하는 시위를 벌였습니다. 이는 물가 상승에 더해 현 정부가 개혁 공약을 이행하지 못한다고 믿는 대중의 불만이 커진 데 따른 것입니다.
Yeah, so when Prime Minister Ibrahim campaigned back in 2022, his platform was sort of this reformist platform to try and boost government revenue. But what he's been doing recently is he's been raising taxes, sales and service taxes. And people are afraid that this will lead to a rise in consumer prices. So what they've done is they've taken to the streets. They're wearing these T-shirts, bandanas with the slogan, "Step Down, Anwar," written over them in the heart of Kuala Lumpur. Now, to try and ease sort of these tensions, the Prime Minister announced a sort of cash handout, an increased aid for poor households, but it's not really quelling any worries of rising costs. And also there are allegations of corruption, judicial interference, because he ran on this anti-corruption platform, but prosecutors have actually dropped these corruption charges against several figures in his government.
Well, the police have estimated roughly 18,000 people to have taken part in the rallies.
Yep.
In English, 18,000 is still thousands. And so in Korean, we did actually say 수천명, but to be more technically correct, we should say 만명 이상.
Yeah.
But because we just have a different way of calculating numbers, that's where it gets tricky, right?
Right.
So it's roughly about 18,000명 that took part in the rally. But in English, again, you know, we use thousands to count the numbers.
Yeah, you could say tens of thousands, but here,
That's
because
not even that.
it's below 20,000,
Yeah.
so I wouldn't say that either. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so a rally is a protest in this case, yeah. What about public discontent?
Yeah, so if you're discontent, that means you're unhappy, right? So if you have public discontent, that means the general public or maybe just a large group of people are feeling this sort of unhappiness, dissatisfaction, and frustration, right?
Public, 국민적인 discontent, 불만. If you're content, then you're happy, 만족스러워요. Not maybe 행복, but you know, 만족한다.
Yeah, it's different from happy, I think. If you're
not happy,
content,
okay.
it's good enough.
It's good enough, yeah exactly.
Yeah.
But here we're talking about discontent.
Yeah.
So 불만, 국민적인 불만이 지금 쌓이고 한 모습. And failing to deliver.
Yeah, so if you fail to deliver, that means you did not deliver. You did not do what you promised or what was expected or required.
But the delivering here is not like, you know, 택배 delivery, right?
No, it's not something tangible.
No.
It's these promises that were made that weren't kept. And it usually could be a person, like a political person, or it could be a company for not meeting sort of these goals, right? Stockholders or shareholders could be very discontent if the board or the CEO doesn't deliver on, let's say, for example, sales goals, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So deliver in this case, 이행하다, failing to deliver on something or just to deliver, you know, promises, for example. 그러면 약속을 이행하지 못했다.
Yeah.
That's what it means. There was an animated children's show that I really loved showing my kids when they were younger. I believe it was shown all across the world, but it's a Korean animation. I believe EBS made it. So I think I'll just say it. Super Wings.
Okay.
So what I loved about this, at the end, they always say, we deliver. And what the planes do, because it's all planes. Planes are the main characters. They deliver parcels, but they also deliver other things. You know, they deliver on their promises or, you know, like we're seeing here. So it has two meanings.
There's the double entendre
Yes, that's right. So I really loved that line at the end because they do have this animation in English as well. I remember showing it to my kids when I was briefly living in America many years ago. So it's, that's how deliver is used. You use it for promises, 약속을 이행하다, or parcels, 택배를 배달하다.
Yeah. So if a company said, if their slogan is "We deliver," that means that you can guarantee.
You can trust us.
You can trust us.
Yes,
exactly.
that's right.
Yes.
So if someone says "We deliver," not just someone, I guess, like an
organization.
a company or something. If they say "We deliver," it can mean 우리는 배달합니다, but it can most likely, more oftentimes than not, mean that 우리는 약속을 지킵니다. So that's the other meaning that you can think of here. And in the case of Malaysia's Prime Minister, people are saying he did not deliver.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, of
Yes.
course. All right, well, let me read the headline again. Thousands of people have rallied in the Malaysian capital of Kuala Lumpur to demand the resignation of Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim as public discontent grows over rising living costs and allegations of failing to deliver promised reforms. Let's move on to the next headline.
A new study has found that dogs can detect Parkinson's disease well before symptoms appear, likely due to elevated levels of musky-smelling sebum on the skin of those affected.
개의 후각을 활용해 파킨슨병을 조기 발견할 수 있다는 연구 결과가 나왔습니다. 이는 발병 조건을 가진 사람에게서 특유의 냄새가 있는 피지의 양이 증가하기 때문인 것으로 보입니다.
Yeah, so the wonderment of dogs never fails to amaze me here. So what this study did was they took 2 dogs that had been trained to detect odor samples of Parkinson's. And when they were presented with this, 130 people with Parkinson's and 175 without, they showed a sensitivity of up to 80%, which means that they were able to detect when 80% of the time when the people had it, but more important, they were also able to detect when they didn't have Parkinson's, and that was 98%. So that was near perfect in a way. So they call that a negativity, I think, reading in these studies, but it shows how good they are at ruling out people who do not have Parkinson's, because Parkinson's, we all know, is a very deadly disease. There's no early screening available for it. There could be warning signs years, even decades before the diagnosis, but timing is very key if you want to treat Parkinson's. And there have been very, very prominent people that have suffered from Parkinson's, namely Muhammad Ali is probably the first person that comes to mind.
Yeah. So if the dogs can detect Parkinson's well before the symptoms show, then hopefully that'll be a sort of breakthrough in being able to treat or prevent anything from getting worse, right? So what's well before?
Yeah, so we could say dogs can detect it before symptoms arise, but if you say well before, that means it's a good amount of time earlier than a particular point or event.
Not just before.
Not just before, not right before, but well before.
한참 전에, 훨씬 이전에. Not just 이전에, but well before. So, dogs with their heightened sense of smell, they apparently can sense Parkinson's way before. That's another way of saying it.
Way before.
Way before
Yeah.
or well before the symptoms actually show.
Yeah. Way would be a little more casual,
It
I
is,
think, but
yeah.
well before a little more formal. For
That's
example, I arrive at the studio well before 8 o'clock and well before everyone else.
Yes, I
yeah.
believe that is true. So yeah, way is a little bit more casual, well is more formal, but they both mean a lot of time.
Significantly before.
Yeah,
yes.
significantly before. Okay, what about elevated?
Yeah, so if something's elevated, that means it's higher than normal or higher than usual, whether it be the level of something, the amount of something. And when you're talking about measurements or amounts, when you think of an elevator, it elevates you, right? You go up.
Yeah, exactly. Although you can also go down on an elevator, but the word itself actually only means to go up.
Yes.
So elevated means 더 높아진, 높은. It's something that's going up. Think of, anything that is elevated is higher than it was before.
Right. So, for example, my blood pressure all of a sudden elevated when I was scared or something like that.
Sure, that can happen. And musky-smelling, 이거는, I guess it's really hard to describe what this is, but it's, would you say it's a sort of wooden smell?
Yeah, musk actually comes from a deer. I believe it
okay.
is. It's if I'm not correct, it's a reddish sort of brown substance which is secreted by male deer for scent marking purposes.
Yeah.
But it's often used in perfumes and cologne.
Sure. It's a popular scent.
Yeah, and I understand it's a scent that Koreans are not very fond of. Other I think countries and other sort of ethnicities might use these sort of colognes more. It's a very pungent sort of very thick smell, I think.
Okay, interesting.
But I am generalizing, of course. Yeah.
All right. Well, let me read the headline again. A new study has found that dogs can detect Parkinson's disease well before symptoms appear, likely due to elevated levels of musky-smelling sebum on the skin of those affected.
Yeah. It also happens to be the name of one of the richest people in the world.
Oh, Elon Musk.
Yes, I didn't put those two together. In any case.
I didn't think of that either, actually. Okay, let's move on to the final headline.
Paleontologists have discovered a 247-million-year-old fossil of a reptile featuring a bizarre row of plume-like structures along its back that resemble feathers, even though the species is not closely related to birds.
2억 4,700만 년 전 파충류 화석에서 해당 종이 조류와 밀접한 관계가 없음에도 커다란 깃털처럼 생긴 특이한 구조가 등을 따라 자리 잡은 모습이 확인됐습니다.
Yeah. So when we talk about feathers, we normally talk about birds, right? That's one characteristic of the bird family. But what these scientists have done, they've discovered this reptile that has a feather-like sort of outgrowth on its back.
Right.
Here it's described as plume-like, right? A plume would be sort of feather-like, but it's not a feather. So they're wondering if there's a sort of relationship or how maybe they evolved.
Yeah,
from
exactly.
reptiles, perhaps?
A lot of the Korean articles have described the way this looks as a sort of 볕 모양, 볕 달린 파충류.
A pyot, like a chicken.
Like a chicken's comb.
A rooster, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
우리 닭 볕처럼 이렇게 파충류 등에 볕처럼 생긴 것이 있다. That's how the Korean articles are describing it. But obviously it's not a bird. It doesn't have feathers. It just looks like it though. It looks like one big feather. To me, it kind of looked like a wing.
It almost looks like a shark's dorsal fin.
Maybe
right?
a fin. Yeah,
in that
exactly.
shape, or like a sailboat sail.
You're right.
But what they found was a fossil. So I've seen the sort of artist's rendition of it, but you're right. It looks like a sort of navigating feather.
All right. Well, it's very bizarre, isn't it?
It is very bizarre because it's very strange, unusual, or sort of surprising. So anything that's bizarre could be described as that.
B-I-Z-A-R-R-E, bizarre. 굉장히 특이하다.
Yeah.
이런 뜻이죠. It's strange, basically. It's not normal
Not
of what you would think of a
unusual,
dinosaur.
yeah.
And because it's a pa충류, as we said.
Right, and they describe it as plume-like, right?
Yeah.
P-L-U-M-E, which is feather-like, not to be confused with flume, which is the waterway.
Right.
Like hurumride, which is...
Is that how we say it in Korea?
Yeah,
I
if you
didn't
go to
know
an
that.
amusement park, hurumride, right?
그렇구나.
That's flume, F-L-U-M-E.
In English, flume. 그렇죠. 이렇게 물에 따라서
You're in a
이렇게
log.
슉 내려오는 거. 그렇죠. 이게 작은 배 모양으로 한 튜브 타가지고 이렇게 내려오는 거 있잖아요. 그러네요. 우리말로 후룸라이드라고 하는구나.
Yeah, but this is
영어로는
plume.
flume이에요. F-L-U-M-E.
Yeah.
근데 그거 말고요. 큰 깃털 같은 거. 우리가 이제 펜 같은 것도 있죠. 깃털로 된 펜. 이런 것들도 이제 plume으로 만들었다고 볼 수 있는데 큰 깃털. That's a P-L-U-M-E. Plume. So on this fossil, we can see a reptile with what looks like a plume, a feather, something quite big.
Yeah.
And it resembles feathers.
Yeah. So think of a peacock. Peacocks have plumes, right? So if something resembles something, it means it's similar in appearance, or not just appearance, but it could be their qualities, their personalities, or their character, right?
그래요. 뭐처럼 보인다, 비슷하다. It resembles a bird. It resembles feathers. But it's a reptile. So it's very bizarre. Let me read the headline again. Paleontologists have discovered a 247-million-year-old fossil of a reptile featuring a bizarre row of plume-like structures along its back that resemble feathers, even though the species is not closely related to birds. Well, that's it for the headlines with Shane Harmer.